I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
Typical honeymooners who are madly in love and it's the best day of their life and they're on their honeymoon, and for a lot of couples it's perfection right then. So we're sitting there in the jacuzzi with our glass of wine, and I basically looked at him and I said, I don't know if I'm in love with you.
Welcome to episode 12, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today's show with Molly and Jason is about overcoming conflict by pure determination. Molly and Jason were married on the Today Show with Katie Couric, and by all measures, they had the perfect relationship. But what the cameras couldn't pick up was the intense, deep conflict going on below the surface for these two. In this interview, Molly and Jason share with us what it was like to live that dichotomy, and also how they almost lost their marriage to unresolved conflict. It's an intense episode talking about a very challenging time in the life of this lovely couple. And we all know no relationship is entirely free of conflict, but I'm happy to say that as we'll see in this show, these two have reached a point of ease with their conflict. So let's see how they did it. With that, we'll go to Molly and Jason. You were talking about the turning point.
Yeah, so we had been dating about 4 months, and I was doing kind of my am I in, am I out, is this guy for me thing. And my mom, who had been sick with cancer for like 2.5 years, got really sick and passed away. And Jason was just totally stellar. I mean, he was so there for me. And, drove all night to Sacramento where my mom was living with our 2 dogs, and, was by my side, was by her side when she passed away, and just literally did not leave my side for what was probably like 2 weeks. I was scared to death to be alone. And I stayed at his house, and he just like totally shepherded me through like this major loss and life-turning event. And I just knew like, this is the man. This is my family now, and,
So sorry, by the way.
Yeah,
I remember
thank you.
the day how important she was to you.
Yeah.
We got engaged probably 6 months after that.
So that was August, and we got engaged in February. Yeah.
So the kind of the theme of the beginning was you, Molly, not knowing if he was the right match because he just didn't meet your same kind of energy.
Right. He wasn't my type. Exactly.
But then you found an understanding of family.
Right.
And then what happened?
It sounds like, and then we just rode off into the sunset, but we definitely didn't. We had a rocky road of it. I mean, I think a lot of it, and maybe we have different perception on this too. Jason had been married before, and I think that he had kind of some wounds from that. And I don't know whether he was aware of that. I, dating him, felt that I was aware of it. And I had my issues. My parents divorced when I was 2. And it was very much like the grass was always greener. Wherever I was, whoever I was with, it was better over there, better with someone else. I should be with, someone else. And so we were kind of unknowingly like inflicting like all these issues on each other, and whether it was, whatever it was. So we fought a lot and had a lot of problems. And actually, before we got married, started seeing this premarital counselor doing premarital therapy. But every time we went in there, we were like in the throes of some major conflict. So she couldn't even take us through the program. She's like, we just got to deal with like
we got to work on this first.
Happening right here.
So sometimes there's conflict and people are saying, oh, I think this is a sign it could be over. And sometimes there's conflict and people have a sense of this is what we're up to with each other. And we're getting through this for something. Were you in either of those categories?
So the answer to that is yes. We were probably in both those categories. I think we were, or at least for me, I remember going, I don't know if this is going to work. And then also, hey, we are looking if we can make it through this, then we're survivors, and we're going to learn a ton about how to be a better married couple even before we're married, of going through a lot of these issues, and hopefully clearing a bunch of these issues. One of the things I think that I benefited from being married before is that you have to resolve all kinds of issues, and if you don't resolve them quickly, they're going to come back, whether you like it or not, and they'll manifest themselves in one way, either physically or the way that you're acting, but so you have to resolve those things. And so I think through therapy, it's always a good idea to or it just came up to the point where we learned to resolve a lot of things quickly.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say it was in neither of those two categories for me, I think, and I'm just totally being honest. I mean, I was 35. I was totally afraid of my childbearing years passing me by. I'd already burned through 2 serious relationships that had great potential, and I was scared of ending up alone. And I saw red flags. I'm sure you saw red flags, but it was one of those, like, I couldn't stay in, I couldn't get out. But that was kind of my MO in relationships. Like, I was in a perpetual state of limbo.
That sounds painful.
It was in retrospect, it was super painful. Like, there were several therapists I never should have stopped seeing, like, along the way. When I was in my early 20s, I should have definitely stayed in therapy longer and dealt with that stuff, just so that I could clearly choose and confidently choose, like, I want this guy or I don't want this guy. And if I pass this guy up, it's okay. Someone else will come along. But it was like I would be in a relationship and I couldn't fully commit. And then eventually I'd get the ultimatum. And so we'd break up, and then I would try everything to get that guy back.
What did your mom always say about?
That I would always leave claw marks in anything that I tried to leave. Oh. So it was like, in this, I was in a predicament with Jason, like, there was no way I was going to leave him. But at the same time, the relationship was so problematic. There was so much conflict. It was such a toxic pattern. Him and I are very much like, I'm more the assertive aggressive. So I would come at him and he would get either highly defensive or stonewall. And it was just like, now we've done a ton of therapy and we've learned these different styles of being. But back then we were just victims.
Is there a gender component to that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think probably women, I don't want to gender stereotype, but I think women would tend to be withdrawn more and men be more aggressive, But I think the one thing about Jason and I, and it's this poster I saw, is marriage is 2 imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. Mm. And the one theme that has run through our entire relationship is that we have never given up. Like, we are both just total fighters. We just sink our teeth in, and it's like, we're going to make this work. And then we had another twist of fate happen, which is why we did ultimately get married. Because if this thing hadn't happened, I don't know if we would have.
Okay, what was it? What was it?
So we were trying to figure out where to get married, and I had been married before, so I wanted the quick, easy, wedding. Like, let's go get some friends, and we'll go down to a beach somewhere, and it will be great. And Molly's like, no, we're having a huge wedding. There's going to be hundreds of people, and it's going to be awesome. And I've got it all designed in my brain and this. So we were going back and forth. And then one morning, Molly was watching the Today show, and they said, hey, if you're engaged and you want to be married, apply now. And Molly's a huge Katie Couric fan, and she wanted to be on a TV show. And
so here we are in the throes of this premarital counseling gone awry. I'm wanting to pursue a career in television, and what Jason didn't say is I had gone to see a life coach who said you need to get on a reality show. So I'm researching all these reality shows, and nothing's really resonating with me. And then I watch the Today show, and they make this announcement, and I'm like, they'll plan our wedding. I'll get on TV and maybe get discovered. We'll get married. Voila. And that desire became so strong for me that I put total blinders on to all the problems, to where we were in the counseling and in our relationship. And, the fact that we made some, slammed together some audition video and sent it in on the deadline day, and they randomly picked it out of a pile and watched it and called us, and next thing you know, we're flying to New York and we're on the Today show competing with 7 other couples to win our dream wedding.
And we won it.
And we won it. We beat 6 other couples. I mean, it's just like, and I even asked, and this is how, and I'm actually writing a memoir called My 15 Minutes that's about this whole experience, because a gazillion people have asked us, oh my God, you got married on the Today Show, like tell us the whole story. But what I think is kind of more interesting is like the why, what motivated it. And my blinders, and I think our blinders, were so on that we even asked our premarital counselor if she would officiate our wedding. She's like, I don't even know if you should be getting married.
Well, that's what I want to say is like you did the ultimate bride move, which is totally to forget about all the substance of the relationship and just focus on the wedding.
Absolutely. Well, and in my case, actually getting married on TV so I could get discovered.
Even more.
It was even beyond.
Yeah. I mean, now you seem really self-aware about that.
Yeah.
But at the time, what were you thinking about that, Jason?
No, we weren't aware about it.
You weren't either.
No. I thought we were on the Today Show to get married. Yeah. I didn't know about the ulterior motive of that. It was to get discovered.
What?
No, I'm totally serious about that.
You knew that I wanted to get on TV.
Yeah, but I didn't know that was one of the driving forces. Like, that was it. I thought, this is a great way to get married. And if we can pull this off, then we're going to pull this off, and it's going to be awesome.
Wow. My book is going to be mind-blowing for you. Whoa. No, but we did, one of the things I write about in the book is that we had a big fight the night before we were about to fly to New York, the first day to appear on the show. And he's like, I don't think we should be doing this. Like, I don't think we should be doing this. Like, look at us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is no way that I'm going to miss out on this opportunity to be on TV. We're going.
Yeah.
And I was like a dog with a bone. And I was like, I don't want to say I didn't care because that sounds really cold, but I was singularly focused at that point, and I kind of figured the relationship would take care of itself. It's so scary to say.
Well, it's amazing to say because it kind of did. Yeah. I don't know all the details yet, but you seem pretty happy.
Happiness, it's so funny. I don't know. How do you want to respond to that? Yes, I'm happy. I think we're happy. I think we're a lot happier than we were early on in our marriage. We fought tooth and nail through the first 7 years. We had a couple points where it was like, I don't know if we're going to make it. And we've seen, a handful of therapists. And I think the last one we saw is kind of considered like the Rambo of marriage therapists, like the last stop. You've seen everybody in town. And like the first session is 3 hours. And it's actually brilliant because he sees you through so many iterations of fights and cycles and whatnot. And after seeing him for, a handful of sessions, he basically said, I don't think there's any hope.
When was this?
So this was
about 4 years ago.
4 years ago?
Yeah. He goes, well, guys, there's nothing more that I can do here. This is all on you. Either you're in or you're out.
And he said,
and it's up to you. You got to make that. You got to make that choice.
And he's a psychobiologist, so he really studies like the physiology of relationships.
Right.
And he's like, your problems are so entrenched in your DNA. It's like when an animal smells a pheromone or something. So it's like you just go there so fast with your issues with each other that I don't even know if we can trench those things out.
Yeah.
It was like total, we call it memory foam.
Well, okay, so I wanted to know about on one hand, Jason, you had gotten your wish. You got your life's wish. You got to be with this woman that you had fallen in love with early on and had been pursuing for all this time.
Right.
And it's almost like as soon as you got what you wished for, pain ensued.
Yeah.
And
there was a wake-up call. Do you want to talk about the jacuzzi on our honeymoon?
We can go there. I don't know if Eric wants you to expand on this
anywhere.
Piece.
Yeah, say what you want.
So as soon as we were married, we flew off to New Zealand, and we had this big heated discussion about, wow, well, here we are, we're married. The Today Show is behind us for the most part. What's next? And we were having this conversation. Are we going to be good together? Are we compatible? Is this right? And it was a tough conversation.
Well, what I remember is, I can remember the scenery. It was so idyllic. It was so beautiful. We were the only people staying at this 5-star resort. It was what typical honeymooners who get, who are madly in love and it's the best day of their life and they're on their honeymoon and there's like, I think for a lot of couples, it's perfection right then. So we're sitting there in the jacuzzi with our glass of wine and I basically looked at him and I said, I don't know if I'm in love with you.
That's such a great statement.
And
terrifying.
It was
for
terrifying
both of you.
because that's what my ex-wife said to me.
Ugh.
And I go, oh my God.
How did I do this again?
Yeah. And it's everything that I was trying to avoid, and I got it served to me on a platter.
Yeah.
And on my honeymoon, I'm like, oh my God, this. And then it was digging out. It was like, well, this is not right. This is not going to happen. There's too much planning on this. We're going to work this out.
Well, I remember asking you, and I think I said that. It was mean to say that because I was trying to.
And I don't think you didn't mean that at that time.
Well, we know
now. It was just one of the things that kind of came out, and yeah.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we've learned about me in relationship is that I'll push away. Like intimacy, I'll push away. I'll say something mean. I will say something that will disconnect us. I've learned that I still do that to this day sometimes. And I think that's what that moment was about. I think I was terrified to be in an intimate relationship. I was terrified to be vulnerable. I was terrified of loss. And so that was just the huge, swift kick in the butt to just try and, screw it all up. And I remember saying to Jason, like, did you not know? Like, did you not know on our wedding day that I wasn't there, that I wasn't all there, that I wasn't all in? Were you really that naive to not be knowing that and feeling that? And he fessed up and he's like, I knew, but I hoped we would get there. And that was a super profound moment for me. His honesty and his authenticity, it actually gave me hope, because I thought, if this guy had no clue and he thinks that that's what love is who I was being. So the fact that he knew and was able to admit that was like, okay, there's hope. We can build from this. We may have, I don't want to say been phonies, been trying to fool ourselves.
I think the opposite. I don't think we've been phonies at all. I think we've been absolutely real. I think, in this world of romantic comedies and everybody sees these things and they're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. And, you're signing up for a movie and as soon as you get married, everything is wonderful. And it's not. That's just the beginning. That's where it starts. And that wake-up call on our honeymoon, I'm like, okay, so this is how it's going to be, and this is what we're going to have to do, and this is the amount of work that we're going to have to do to make this relationship work. And it's been great in that I think we've learned probably more than if it was easy, we wouldn't have learned anything.
Yeah.
And in this process of going through a lot of this, we're pulling all these nuggets that now, she says about pushing away. I know that means come closer to me. I need you.
Whereas early on in our relationship,
I would say, okay, I'm getting away.
Yep.
And
take it personally.
Right. And I would be defensive about things. And now, she says some things and I'm not defensive about them because I know it's just fluff.
Yeah.
So there was this huge learning curve, I think, and now we're kind of in the sweet spot where we know each other so well.
And remind me how many years it's been now?
This is our 10th year wedding anniversary in October.
In October, yeah.
Okay.
10 years. So
I mean, it's funny because I just wanted to ask you, like, some guys could have come home from that honeymoon and just annulment, like, over.
Right.
Like, I'm just curious what it was about you that, like, didn't do that.
All right, so here's the romantic part. I think because I was truly in love with you, and I had an ideal of how this was going to work out, and so on the romance side, I had a romantic ideal of how this was going to work out, and I was not going to be deterred from that. So I knew there was going to be a lot more work. I was a little disappointed, but I was ready to jump in.
Was the romantic ideal about marriage or about me in particular? and the life you kind of saw. Because you, like, as you told Eric, had this idea, right? This dream about us being together for a long time. So I'm just kind of curious.
I think it's a combination of the two. I mean, obviously, I mean,
I did a good job at shattering it, I know, but
no, because it wasn't just, about Molly. It was also Molly in the position of a mother. It was Molly in the position of a friend. It was Molly in all these other roles that that you get when you get married to somebody. And I knew that she'd be an awesome mom. I knew that she'd be a great friend. I know that she is super confident and isn't easily deterred. So, it was worth the investment in that.
Yeah.
But I mean, in retrospect, I pushed hard those first few years. I pushed hard. I was so critical of him in the bedroom in particular. A lot of rage would come up for me when we would be intimate in the bedroom, and I would turn that on him and just be super critical, and he couldn't do anything right, and I would fantasize about ex-lovers, and, it was just, really hard for me, but hard for him. And he knows this. I'm sure it's still painful to hear, but I mean, that was, early on. It was just... That's powerful. That's one of the hardest things, I think, for most men is to be criticized to begin with. Yeah.
But then criticized for something sexual, and which is so intimate and is so wrapped up in our identity as men.
Yeah.
That cut to the core. How did you stay? I mean, I think I might have run.
I was hurt. There's no doubt about it. And I think that was her goal, as part of the pushing away, that she said, okay, this, he didn't balk at this. All right, so now I'm going to try this. And now, I'm going to get him really where it hurts.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not thinking this consciously.
No,
This
no.
is like all unconscious,
Yeah. And
That's how that stuff goes.
kind of just, ratcheting it up. And I think that's where we had another intervention with a marriage therapist, and they kind of told us a little bit more about that.
Did you get to the root of what that rage was all about?
Oh, I mean, I don't know that I'll ever get to the total root of it, but I think it's just the fear of intimacy, of vulnerability, of being left, of losing everything, of, just, again, I have this thing that I do of like, wherever I am, I should be somewhere else, and I'm still to this day trying to figure that out. And, but insofar as like how it plays out in our relationship, it's like, I've come so far. I mean, we have 2 kids, we have 2 dogs, we have this family. Jason is my best friend. Like, we have the best talks. What I love most and what I think keeps us connected is just that we just have great talks, whether it's sitting here around the fire after the kids have gone to bed or going out to dinner, and we just share our individual lives with each other and help each other and be each other's counsel, and we make time for our relationship. We take an overnight trip, just the 2 of us, or we go surfing together, we go on a date night. I see so many couples who, especially after having kids, it's like years since they were alone with their spouse, or months since they've had sex. And it's like, how can a relationship sustain itself? I mean, I had one therapist say, you might have to make an administrative decision to have sex if you don't want to. Like, as one of the administrators of your marriages need this, you might just have to make a decision to have it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Not wait till you're horny or whatever. Just decide to do it. And a lot of times I was just deciding to do it, to please him or to keep it together. And, I'm happy to say that today, like, that part of our relationship has come so far and, is probably more regular now than it's ever been and much more enjoyable for me. And I know it's never enough, but, it's just, it's come a long way.
So you said that there was a turning point. It sounded like you were saying that there was a turning point at some point, maybe around 7 years or so.
Yeah, well, that's when we saw Rambo, the therapist, who was like, basically, there's no hope for you. And like, I think we just left that office feeling so dejected, and it was almost like he threw a gauntlet down. And we were like, oh, no, you didn't. Oh, we are not. Because we have not been back in therapy since then. Not that we shouldn't be back in therapy from time to time. I think we should. I think everybody needs a tune-up. But that was the last time that we saw him. And I think we both it was almost like we were spoiled brats a little bit, almost just so self-indulgent in our stuff and our need to be right. And one of the key things that he taught us is this concept of relieving each other, which is when you get into it, it's the hardest thing to do. But it's basically like copping to something to relieve the other person.
Right.
And basically saying like, I'm sorry I was a bitch, or I'm sorry whatever, when that's the last thing you want to do and it's the hardest thing to do, but it's the only thing. Like I said, we got into this big fight this morning, and I think we both knew what we needed to do, but it was so hard. And, I felt like something I did kind of made things go off the rails. So I just went up to him and I said, hey, I'm really sorry that I did that. That must have really made you feel bad.
And it worked.
And then he was able to like own his stuff. But
it brought us back together. And that whole concept of relieving, I think, is super powerful that way.
And relieving isn't necessarily admitting fault or giving up any feelings of that person did things wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just a matter of putting it back together. They always say like you can have love or you can be right.
Yes, so true.
So it's not an admission of guilt to relieve the other person. It's just I'm putting our relationship first. How do we put this back together? And then maybe at a time later when it's not so heated, you can kind of deconstruct what happened. Here's how I felt. Here's how we're no experts, but I feel like in some ways we are, because we've been through so much and we have a lot of tools.
That goes back to the tools, and that's another tool that we have in our quiver that we can pull from and say, okay, whoa, we've got a problem here. We're in the middle of a fight. Either we can go to our corners and never resolve this, or we can turn around, look at each other, and try to figure out how to come together again.
It's such a fascinating story. The thing about you two now is that you don't have any of the body language or any of the signs of brokenness, from what I can tell. Neither one of you looks cowed. You're not stonewalling or dismissing one another. There's no eye rolling. You're both fully self-expressed.
Which is, I was noticing a first for us. It's interesting that you're noticing that, because like when whether it's like having therapists or we've been interviewed before, the vibe's been very different. So I think like we have come a long way. I know, I'm saying like I feel like we have come a long way. There were years of like nasty texts and getting in cars and speeding away and screaming in front of our. I think
there was a period of like 6 months where I'd go into the office and I would get texts going. I had a 45-minute commute into the office, and so my phones would just blow up with texts from her, and they're not 1 or 2 line text. It's 4 paragraphs. So I know she's on the other side going, "You bastard."
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's such an amazing arc.
It's crazy.
And so when I reminded you what the show is about today, you looked at Jason and you said, "Well, it's timely."
Well, because we had this pretty toxic fight this morning, and like we haven't had a fight like this in a while that's gone off the rails so fast, where you just feel like icky afterwards. And, we haven't like had time to really deconstruct it. It happened. We relieved each other, but we haven't processed it yet, kind of what the triggers were there for both of us. But this other therapist that we saw taught us this concept of like part X. And your part X is that your subconscious, the place where you're broken and you're wounded, that you go when you're threatened. And like that's where we went in this exchange.
What does it mean? What is that?
So
place?
like the part X is like, so the part X is,
it's represented by Molly's part X may go back to something that happened to her at a young age where she feels abandoned, and she's an 11-year-old girl, that this was something that happened to her. And so every time we get into this, her part X comes up, and it has all of the feelings that are attached to that.
Part X, that part of you.
That part of you, that trauma that happened, and a part of you that gets arrested in that place. And so it becomes like another identity that you have, and whether it's helpless or angry or stonewalling or whatever. And he would take us through these visualizations where he would have us visualize what that part X looked like. and really imagine ourselves and then imagine our part X and talking to our part X and giving that part X whatever it needs, whatever it didn't get, and using ourselves to heal ourselves instead of inflicting our part X's on each other.
Yeah.
And so that was another great thing that we got.
There's a theory, Imago relationship therapy.
A what?
Imago relationship
I haven't
therapy
heard of it.
is one of the schools of relationship therapy. And what they essentially say, I'm going to paraphrase it, and they say it much more eloquently, but essentially it's that what happens in relation, we are drawn to a person who is designed to drive up our part X.
Yeah.
And that part X then comes up, and because you're in a relationship, your sacred duty is to be there for your partner to heal their part X against you, which is going to be painful, but then you do.
Right.
And then another part X comes up, and you're doing it for one another, and that's the whole of a relationship.
That's like the whole reason to be in a relationship.
That's the reason. And it's painful, but it creates intimacy, and there's nothing else that can get that level of intimacy in the universe.
And I totally believe it. And, the other thing that this therapist said is he said, the thing about intimacy is, and the only way that it can occur is if each person is willing to accept the other person's greatest flaw. And he said, the reason why people experience being in love is because it's a physiological thing. Everyone's on their best behavior. It's like a mating instinct almost. And he said the longest he ever saw a couple stay in this honeymoon phase was 9 months. That was the longest. And then the flaws start to arise. And that's where it's like, oh, you're not good enough, or you're not right for me, or whatever. And so it's like, what is the biggest flaw, and can I accept that? And then you build intimacy from there. But in your description, it's the multi-tiered coming to the surface. It's like all of our subconscious memories of times that we were traumatized on some small or grand level,
But then there do seem to be these moments of plateau, arguably, or peace, where it's almost as if we just have accepted the inevitability of our part X's.
Yeah.
And it's like, fine.
Right.
I know I've got, and I know you've got 10, 20 part X's, whatever. We're together. And am I diminishing it? Is that a space that you two are in?
I don't think you're diminishing it. And I think that we kind of are probably in that space. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have things like we had this morning. But I definitely think we're plateaued in terms of there's no more question of like, are we going to make it, and are we going to,
But I was going to say one of the other concepts that we have is, about coming back together as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
There's the time period where if you're something happens and you get in a fight and you go to each other's corners and you aren't coming back together quickly, or you realize, or you're quick to say, I'm sorry. I think that's another thing that we developed over time is that, we're gonna fix this, and we're gonna fix this really fast. We're gonna right this ship. We're gonna right the ship really quick. We know it's capsized for a second, but now we're back. And I think that was one of the concepts also that we've developed and trained ourselves to do.
I think we do
over time.
I think we do a really good job too of, sometimes there's just not enough time in the day to like talk about everything. So sometimes some big blow up will happen, and then we'll kind of separate for a short period of time, and then we come back almost like it never happened, but it's actually a healthy thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we don't need to hash this out. Like, we've been down this road. Let's just like get on with our day. And like, I can see cues from him. Maybe it's the tone of voice that he's talking to me in, which is basically saying, I'm sorry, or like, I'm not mad at you anymore, or let's make this better. And I might say something like, you look cute in that, or what do you want for dinner tonight? So there's different ways of saying we're okay, I'm sorry, than having to like get into it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. So your entire relationship obviously isn't fights and recovering from fights.
No.
No.
So your
it's
entire
such
relationship.
a small part of our relationship now.
So what do you do proactively that creates depth and intimacy? Like, what are the tools that not even tools, but what are the things that you do with one another that just create relationship?
I think that we're an awesome team, and when we have a project to work on together, like the Today Show was a perfect example of that. Even though there were different things, but that was a project, and we went at that thing like nobody was going to ever tell us that we were going to lose this thing. And we went and we campaigned, and this was before there was Facebook and everything else like that. And so we were driving around in a big bus with vinyl stickers pasted on the side, and somehow we figured out how to get onto Dodger Stadium field for a game. I knew somebody over there. I mean, we pulled every trick out of our hat to make that happen. And then, building this house was another project. And it seems like we're really good together on when we have something to focus on. So,
and I think also, like, we both love traveling. We both love surfing. Like, Jason has been a lifetime surfer. I just took it up as a passion. So it's like now, everybody but Kennedy, and she will too, like, we surf. So it's like every weekend we're going to the beach. And I mean, we both love the beach. We love the ocean. We've created a life that revolves around that. And it's just, there's like a certain sort of awesomeness. Like, we love our house, we love our family, we love the beach. Like, it's just, we feel super grateful for that. And I love, like, laying in bed next to him, even when I'm reading and he's watching a show. And it's just, I don't know. It's just that great feeling,
I love how you said that. I mean, because it is a great feeling, but we're also, I don't know, I find myself grateful to have you in my life all the time. I really do. I look over you and say, hey, God, I'm so lucky.
He's still hopeless. He's still hopeless.
That I got this one.
So
That's
sweet.
true.
He sees me through rose-colored glasses. Honestly, like, he makes me feel like the most beautiful girl. He makes me feel like I can do anything. He supports me so that I can pursue my passions. So, like, I'm super happy in my life as an individual, and so that helps our marriage work too, and I think just, like, going forward, we're so excited about all the adventures and traveling. Maybe we'll write a book about marriage and try and share some of these tips with other people. I don't know. We're always kind of like dreaming and what's next and putting the plan together.
Okay, and then last question. What is the first, you, Molly, what is it that Jason does that he doesn't even know he does that makes a huge difference for you?
How domestic he is. Like, he's just, he's always helping around the house. He can fix anything. He does dishes. He cooks. He's.
This is really helping my manly man image.
It's so funny you say that, because did you know that that's actually the #1 reported thing that creates sexual arousal in women in the research?
Really?
And love. The women always report that if the man helps around the house, she's hornier for him and happier about the marriage.
Huh. Well, there you go.
I love doing dishes.
Exactly. That's foreplay. Okay, so Jason, your turn. What is the thing that Molly does that she might not even know how big a difference it makes?
I think Molly throws her hat over the wall a lot of times, where I'm like, wait. And she'll just do it, and then we've got to go get that hat, no matter what the project is, whatever the item is, whatever, if it's something that we wanted to do together, she's ultimately pushes it a little bit, where I would overanalyze it or something else like that. So I think that's what she does, but she probably knows that already.
I don't know. No, I mean, I know you like that about me, like, it inspires you, but I know you push back. See, it's funny. He pushes back, but then he says, oh, I like it that you push me. So it's like this struggle when we're in it, like buying this house and everything. But then after the fact, he's like, I mean, we have that great yin and yang.
It's not 100%. It's, but
yeah,
on those items where I overthought it, it's nice to have someone say, let's just do it.
When I showed up at the door and she hadn't told you I was coming, you're just like, oh, okay, Molly's doing a thing. Let's do it.
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, well, thanks so much for having me here and being so honest and vulnerable. This is really great. Now, I'd like to finish shows with a quick game of this or that, so we'll keep it super short, because I know you got to pick up your other kids.
Yeah.
So, all right, first question. We'll keep it easy. Coffee or tea?
Yeah.
Coffee.
Tea.
Okay. Spider-Man or Superman?
Spider-Man.
Superman.
Why Superman?
Because he's invincible. I mean, nobody can beat Superman.
Nobody can beat him. Okay, so then along those lines, would you rather be bulletproof or able to breathe underwater?
Breathe underwater.
Same.
I thought you were going to say bulletproof because of the whole Superman invincibility thing.
No, I think because we love the ocean.
Oh,
so
of course, you're surfers. That was actually kind of an easy one.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. Okay, second to last question. If you could choose either enlightenment or $1 billion, which one would it be?
Enlightenment.
I'd have to say enlightenment.
Yeah.
I think $1 billion would be, I mean, amazing, yes, but also a huge burden. And yeah, it's like just to be freed up from all the, you know.
Yeah, you could make $1 billion if you were enlightened.
There you go.
If you even cared.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, last question. If
Yeah.
you had to either live forever, like infinity, or die in the next 5 minutes, which would it be? Molly.
Die in the next 5 minutes.
Live forever? Nah, I don't want to live forever.
Yeah.
You guys are unanimous on that one. Okay, great. Thanks for the show,
Thank
you guys.
Eric.
That was
this
wonderful.
Is awesome.
Well, that's all from Molly and Jason, folks. If you'd like to learn more about Molly, you can do so at her website, where you can find more about her book, and you can also contact her directly. That site and blog is located at www.mollymuchka.com. That's MOLLYMOUCHKA.com. And you can learn more about Jason's company, Star Wagons, at starwagons.com. StarWaggons.com. He didn't mention this on the show, but Jason provides film production trailers for all kinds of films, both for major studios and for independent productions. If you liked what you heard on the show today, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a big difference to us. If you have questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our social platforms. You can find our website at together.guide. Our Facebook page is Facebook/TogetherShow. Twitter and Instagram are both together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and the love of my life is Aubrey Pick. At this very moment, she's editing photos and studiously ignoring me. Thanks once again to our guests, Molly and Jason. Guys, can I move in with you? That gorgeous house is just too much for one couple to handle. I think you need me there. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.